It was the day I had dreaded for 2 weeks. I knew the truth even before I hired the investigator. The marriage had been bankrupted for the last year and impoverished the year before. But like most long-married men, I was slow to see the signs. Love and trust become a habit when you've been married for over 2 decades. When things aren't right, when communication breaks down and the shared experiences you've come to expect slowly evaporate, you reach out and re-engage. You try to talk with your spouse, do things together, and be patient and loving while assuming whatever is wrong will work itself out. Eventually, you look around and find yourself more alone than you've ever been, even when she is present, and you begin to ask questions. My wife, Claire Daniels, worked 4 days each week and had Wednesdays off. 4 days each week we got home at about the same time and took turns preparing dinner. There was a time when we cooked together, but it seemed that more and more we each cooked alone. When she would cook, she refused my help. When I would cook, she would busy herself with other things. On Wednesdays, she was usually home when I arrived, but I began to realize she was going out and arriving home only a short time ahead of me. Of course, there were plenty of perfectly good reasons for this, but my doubts weighed on me. A married man learns to phrase his concerns as innocent questions if he wants to avoid a pointless fight. Monday through Friday, I'd ask her about her day, and increasingly I got cryptic responses without any real information. We were more than just drifting apart. She was pulling away. Our kids, a boy and a girl, were off at college. That left the two of us to build a new life with fewer obligations and more time together. For some reason, it wasn't working out that way. We weren't together as much as I expected, and when we were, she often wasn't entirely there. It was no one thing that clued me in. There were no hushed phone calls, no text messages, and no long hours on the computer. She never kept her phone locked, and I confess I checked. I checked her email, too. Our sex life continued as before. She just didn't engage. What's a husband to do? I saw no value in spyware like miniaturized cameras and audio recorders, no taps on the phone line, and no GPS tracker under her car. I figured if she was hiding anything, I knew where to look, so I hired a PI named Harvey Madison and told him simply, "She's off doing something on Wednesdays. Find out what it is and don't get caught." That was a Monday. 2 days later, he knew what she was up to, and a week after that, he had the video. It cost me less than you might think. They were creatures of habit. The thing that meant they didn't need to contact each other was the same thing that made it so easy to get caught. Every Wednesday, she met a man named Bill Alexander at the Best Western off the interstate. They got a meal, took a room, bumped uglies until they were exhausted, and headed for their respective homes. The affair had been going on for 2 years, which was about what I suspected. How do I know? A small bribe to the office got us a look at their billing records. Bill was gallant and always paid for the room. He could afford it. William Alexander was the owner of one of the largest plumbing companies in the city. He owned a fleet of trucks and a small army of employees. He also had a wife who was slowly dying of multiple myeloma. My heart went out to his wife, but he was a scumbag. The pro I hired didn't break the news to me until he had the video. He knew I wanted ironclad proof, and he didn't trust me not to tip my hand if he told me what he thought. He was right. It was a Thursday morning, the day after he got the video, when my investigator gave me the news. I sat in his office as he briefed me. Then he turned the computer screen in my direction, started the video running, and left me alone with my pain. I want to tell you what I saw, but it would sound sexier than it was. It was just 2 middle-aged people having intimacy. They got undressed like an old married couple going to bed for the 10,000th time. They talked about their week, talked about their kids, talked about the traffic getting there, talked about their lunch just minutes ago, and they talked and talked and talked as they took their time to step out of their shoes and their clothes and their middle-aged underwear. They embraced and kissed, rubbed all the necessary places, and enjoyed like a middle-aged, mildly overweight couple. They lay together and talked some more, and when he was ready, they did it again. If they tried to make a living in the porn industry, they'd be living in a dirty one-room apartment and barely scraping by. This movie wasn't going to sell a lot of copies. That's not to say it wasn't breaking my heart. She might not have been a porn star, but she was my wife for better or worse, forsaking all others, except she wasn't anymore. For the first time in a long time, I finally understood my marriage. She was giving everything to Bill, and I was just an afterthought. Avoiding her that Thursday night was easier than you might imagine because she'd been avoiding me for 2 years. Friday was the same, and the weekend wasn't much different. For the first time, her indifference benefited me. Monday morning, I sat with a lawyer, Bert Taylor, who specialized in family law. What a hell of a thing to call a guy who specializes in tearing apart a family with divorce. He told me my rights and what to expect, and then I told him what I wanted to do. At first, he tried to wave me off. You don't understand. Suing someone for alienation of affection is a waste of time. They hardly ever go anywhere. There's not much money in it, and it just opens you to public ridicule. You don't understand how I want to do it. And with that, I laid it out for him. Have you ever seen a lawyer lean forward and smile? It's like looking into the mouth of a shark that smells blood in the water. He scared even me. You do realize if you do this, you will never see a dime. I know, I replied, and you will still need to pay my bill. There was that smile again. I know, I replied. Henry, I've had a lot of people sit where you are now. I've watched their lives go up in smoke, watched their savings evaporate, and there's never a damn bit of justice in any of it. If you can pull this off, I might just take your case for fee. Now I was smiling. Once the paperwork was ready, both Claire and Bill received registered letters from the law offices of Turner and Taylor. They were told that a situation had arisen that required their attention, and could they please attend a meeting on Tuesday afternoon at 10 a.m. We chose Tuesday because we were gambling that they wouldn't bother to tell each other about their appointments. Claire arrived first at 9:50. Bill walked through the door 5 minutes later. The secretary said that when Bill arrived and they saw each other, the look of panic on their faces was the best part of her entire week. She was in on our plans and tried not to smile as the cheaters took chairs as far apart in the room as possible. When I arrived promptly at 10 a.m., they fell into a laughable state of confusion and panic. I just looked at them both, and before Claire could ask any questions, I said, "We'll just be a moment." With that, I walked into my lawyer's personal office like I owned the place. I don't think that made them feel any better. A minute later, Bert buzzed his secretary, who stood up, walked to the office door, and said, "Mrs. Daniels, Mr. Alexander, Mr. Taylor will see you now." And with that, she opened the door and admitted 2 very nervous cheaters. Bert Taylor and I were seated on one side of the conference table with my private investigator. The cheaters sat together on the other. Claire tried to speak, but Bert stopped her. "Mrs. Daniels, all will be explained in a moment." I let my lawyer do the talking for me. "Mrs. Daniels, Mr. Alexander, I want to thank you both for coming today. Obviously, we have things to discuss, and my client thought it best that we discuss them together." He looked at me when he said "my client," and that set the tone for the rest of the meeting. "I'm sure you know by now that we are aware of your long-running affair, but just in case you're wondering what we know and what we may not know, we know that the 2 of you get together every Wednesday at the Best Western by the Interstate, where you have been conducting a 2-year-long affair. For obvious reasons, you have kept this from my client, and by all appearance, Mr. Alexander, you have kept it from your wife. Is this true?" The slime ball didn't say a word. He didn't nod. He didn't even blink. He just sat there with his mouth open, staring at us. My lawyer continued, "I'll take that as confirmation." He slid a manila envelope across the table to my wife and said, "Mrs. Daniels, this is a petition for divorce that we are filing in the local court this afternoon. It offers you the standard 50-50 split of all assets, calls for the house to be sold and the assets split, and allows you each to keep your own retirement accounts. A few matters like the ongoing tuition expense of your children's education are spelled out in detail in that your husband is willing to carry the full burden of that expense. Your husband is being generous, Mrs. Daniels, but if you want to fight the divorce, we will change the grounds to adultery and make a public record of your activities. Personally, I don't care either way, but your husband is willing to spare you the embarrassment if you are willing to be reasonable. What proof do you have? That was Bill speaking, and the best way to describe the tone of his voice is confrontational. I guess the shock of being discovered had worn off. With that, Bert called their attention to the TV screen at the end of the conference table. Harvey clicked the remote, and the previous week's video filled the screen. Claire screamed and buried her face in her hands. Bill began to curse. "This is illegal! You can't record us in a room that we paid for! I'll have your license for this!" You might wish to consult your lawyer on the specifics of the law, Mr. Alexander, but I assure you it was an honest mistake. Another client of mine had reserved the room the day before and inadvertently left his recording devices in the room. He is very embarrassed about the whole matter. In either event, Mr. Madison here, who was hired by Mr. Daniels, had one of his agents in the hallway outside your hotel room recording your arrival and departure times. Also, he got a very clear recording of the two of you when you left the room. With that, Harvey clicked the remote again and showed a short video of my wife and Bill leaving their hotel room and walking down the hallway, Bill's hand firmly on Claire's back, as Claire said, "You were exceptional today, lover. Same time next week? I feel certain our evidence will stand up in court." The two cheaters looked positively sick. Of course, we don't need to be concerned how the recording was obtained if all we want to do is show it to your wife, Mr. Alexander. With that, Bert Taylor waited. When the look of resignation was evident on Bill's face and his head dropped, we knew that he knew exactly what we had in mind. Bill said quietly, almost imperceptibly, "That's blackmail." "No, Mr. Alexander, it's revenge. Blackmail requires a quid pro quo. If we show this to your wife, it is purely with the intent to ruin your life." Bert passed a second manila envelope across the table. "Mr. Alexander, this is a declaration to bring an alienation of affection suit against you, charging that you have been having intercourse with my client's wife, thereby drawing her away from her marriage and causing Mr. Daniels untold pain and aggravation. Please, you can't do this. My wife isn't well. She has blood cancer and she's already weak. This will kill her. Please, for pity's sake, have mercy, if not for me, then at least for her. She doesn't deserve this." Bert and I looked at each other as if to silently confer. I nodded. "Mr. Alexander, my client is an honorable man who does not wish to cause your wife any undue pain. We will wait to file this notice until after she passes. In the meantime, you can keep the notice as a reminder of what is to come." I leaned across the table. "You better take real good care of her, you worthless jerk. You make sure that every day she lives, she gets the very best care, because the longer she lives, the longer you get to keep your money. When she passes, you lose it all." Bill looked sick, which is just about what I was working for. All this while, Claire had been silent. She had listened to everything and there were tears in her eyes, but she had not said a word. With the focus moving off Bill, she spoke. "Henry, I am so very sorry. I don't know why I did it. Bill talked me into it and You're going to have to do a lot better than that, Claire. This has been going on for 2 years. Whatever he did to talk you into it the first time, you became a willing participant. But please, the kids were off at college, you were busy with your career, and the new girls at work were so young. I just started feeling old. Bill gave me some excitement, but I see now that was wrong. Let's go home. We can fix this. I promise." "I don't think so, Claire. Sign the papers. They are very fair. Then you can chase whatever fountain of youth you need," I answered. "Please, think of the kids. We were supposed to grow old together, Henry," she pleaded. Just sign the papers, Claire, I demanded. With that, Bert pushed the button to sound the buzzer in the outer office. The door opened, and his secretary escorted Claire and Bill out of the room. Are you okay, Henry? That was Harvey speaking. Yeah, that video you got really did something to me. There's no going back. You still sure you want to handle Bill this way? That was Bert speaking. Oh yeah, like you said, there's no money in an alienation of affection suit. I want something more from him. I hope he's smart enough to walk into your trap. He was. Bill set to work impoverishing himself. He was giving away everything he had, but in name only. He sold his personal truck and tools to his son for $1 and made him the owner of his company for another. Bill became an employee who never seemed to create savings. He sold his house to his daughter for $10 but continued to live there. He wrote 2 fat checks to his kids and cleaned out his savings. He transferred his 401k to them in much the same way. Of course, it was just a ruse. They would own everything on paper, and he would use his paycheck to buy groceries and pay the taxes while they could shunt him whatever additional money he needed. He positioned himself to be judgment-proof if my suit ever came down. 2 years later, his wife died. A week after that, he was served. It was déjà vu all over again. Bill was admitted to Bert's office, and he was met by the same 3 of us. However, this time he was smirking. He figured he'd put one over on us. Mr. Alexander, we meet again. As we promised 2 years ago, we have held back on our suit for alienation of affection. Mr. Daniels has divorced his wife because of her infidelity with you, and now the stakes are higher. He has lost both her affection and his marriage, and it's time to pay the piper. He just sat there smirking and said, "Good luck." Harvey started the same video we had shown 2 years ago. We covered all this before, Mr. Alexander. For 2 years you carried on a weekly affair with Mr. Daniels' wife, Claire, meeting her at the Best Western by the interstate every Wednesday. Your actions and your craven disregard for my client's marriage tore apart his family. His children now have 2 parents that live apart. His grandchildren will never know an intact family. The law only allows him to take money in compensation for his pain, so we have set the amount at $300,000. You can pay us now, or we can go into court with a larger amount and drag all of this out into public view. Go ahead, take your best shot. I've got nothing for you to take, he replied. I wouldn't call it nothing, Mr. Alexander. You have a home and a successful company. We can easily extract the desired amount from those assets alone. Then there is always your retirement account if we need to go that route. I don't have any of those things. I sold my company to my son, sold my house to my daughter, and gave them both my retirement accounts. I'm living hand to mouth, he replied. We could always garner your wages. You are still working and doing the same job running your company. I'm running it, but it's not mine. My pinhead son owns it now. If he ran it, he'd just drive it into the ground. He was smirking more now than before. You're paying rent on your old house? We asked. No, my soft-hearted daughter actually gives me money, but you can't touch that. It's off the books. The kid does whatever I tell her. You seem to have enough money for your other affairs. With that, Harvey clicked the remote again. Here you are with Sarah Perkins about 2 months after you ended your affair with Claire Daniels following our last visit 2 years ago. And here you are with Barbara McNair a year and a half ago, and Janet Clarkson, and Harriet. Bill Alexander had been a busy little fellow in the past 2 years. So, lonely married women need a little excitement in their boring lives? Tell their husbands. I don't have any money for them either. In the typically detached voice of a lawyer, Bert said, You've been cheating on your wife for the past 4 years, Mr. Alexander, and all the while she was slowly dying. Don't you have any shame? Bill laughed at this remark. You underestimate me, Mr. Taylor. The world is full of unhappy wives like his. He nodded at me when he said that. I've had more than that, and it's been longer than just 4 years. I've got what women want. My wife was in no position to check up on me, so I was free to do as I please. Bill was sitting back in his seat feeling pretty good about himself. It was his last proud moment. The office door flew open, and Bill's son and daughter ran into the room. She was crying, and he was looking to fight the old man. "Daddy, how could you? Mom needed you and you were out cheating on her." Well, you can imagine how the next few minutes played out. Mom was faithful to you every day of her marriage. She took care of you, fed you, washed your clothes, and cleaned your house. Then when her need was greatest, you were off sleeping with other women, other married women no less. You think I can't run the company without you? Just watch me. I'll make it bigger than you ever could. Maybe it's time you move out of the office and got back to practicing your trade. Mom used to tell me that she and you were going to downsize and give your house to us so we can raise our kids with more room. I just realized that I own that house now. Thanks, Dad. It looks like Mom's promise came true. Bill tried to deny everything he'd just said and the videos we'd already shown, but his kids had been in the other room watching everything. Eventually, the two siblings turned and stormed out of the office faster than they had entered, and Bill was left to make sense of what had just happened. I guess he finally got it because he turned to us with murder in his eyes and said, "You jerks! You set me up!" Damn right we did. That was me. I'd been silent throughout this meeting, but I wasn't above taking credit for my plan. "You're a piece of filth. You don't deserve to walk among decent men. We're going to watch you like a hawk, and if your kids ever transfer ownership of your house or company back to you or return the money from your bank or retirement accounts, we will be there to file this suit and share what we know with the other husbands. In the meantime, you'll need to beg your kids for every scrap and every dollar. You'll depend on them for everything, and I have a sense they won't be feeling all that generous from here on." Bill stormed out of the office, and I made a mental note to watch my back. I doubt he would be a real threat to me. Bill was fundamentally a coward who would sneak around behind other men's backs to have an affair with their wives. He wasn't going to do anything. Harvey watched Bill off and on for the next few months, and less often after that. Two interesting things happened very fast. First, Bill lost his office job running the company that he had started and was back on calls, crawling under homes in the dust and dirt to fix their pipes. The company seemed to do well with the change in management. In fact, employee morale went up. Second, Bill moved into a small apartment, and his daughter moved her growing family into the home she grew up in. The kids loved having their own rooms and loved the big backyard with a pool even more. Just to be sure that Bill's kids didn't change their minds about him, anytime Harvey found Bill messing around with another woman, he would send the pictures to his kids. His wife was long dead, and at some level it didn't matter anymore who he messed with, but it continued to remind his kids of the way he cheated on their mother. They never wavered in their decision to keep what Bill had given them. Bill spent his later years working for his son, doing the exhausting and sometimes unpleasant work that he learned at the beginning of his career, and waiting for his Social Security checks to start. I never got a dime from Bill, and contrary to Bert's promise, I did wind up paying his bill. However, everything evens out. Bert introduced me to his sister-in-law, Jean, who had recently divorced her cheating husband. In that case, Bert did handle pro bono. She is just a few years younger than me, and after a few months of dating and getting to know each other, she turned out to be the kind of woman who genuinely enjoys being with her man. She's an amorous little minx, too, and some mornings it takes everything I can do just to get to work on time. The divorce didn't go through as quietly or as smoothly as the above might suggest. Claire fought it. There was court-ordered counseling and mediation, but in the end, I was free. That's the other thing about being married for a long time. When your spouse has no use for you and you suddenly file for divorce, you somehow become the most important thing in her life again. She was no longer mine. Claire still lives in the same town, and we do see each other from time to time, mostly when we visit with the kids for birthday parties and such. For some reason, she doesn't seem to like Jean very much, even though the rest of the family thinks she's great. Jean likes Claire just fine, and sometimes thanks her for making me single again. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, Please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I listened to the audio and stared at the pictures the investigator supplied. He was able to get a useful video. The audio was sickening. We have to be more careful. I don't want Ted finding out. He might do something bad to you. Oh yeah, right. That wimp? Oh, I'm so scared of a Walmart assistant manager. Giggling, she replied. Knock it off. I thought I was pregnant and his surprise wedding proposal handed me somebody to take care of the kid. I wasn't pregnant but married him anyway. Well, he obviously can't keep you satisfied. Get on all fours again. I've heard some guys get off watching their spouse having an affair. I'm not one of them. I watched in horror at the video. Who was this woman? She talked and acted like a cheating woman. We arrive on Sunday night. You're going to come in Monday night? She asked. You got it. I figured he might get suspicious if I was on the same flight as you. We can hook up Tuesday morning, send him out boating or fishing for the day. My name is Ted Smallhouse. I married Crystal almost 5 years ago. We are going to Costa Rica to celebrate our 5th anniversary. I have no desire to spend any more of my life with this unfaithful spouse. We have 2 kids. My son came along 3 years ago and my daughter last year. Crystal's parents are going to watch the kids while we travel. Crystal is a very caring and doting mother. These kids are her reason for living. I guess I'm an underachiever. Although I always earned good grades in school, I'm an assistant manager at a Walmart superstore. My dad, Howard, owns and runs a bar. It's been an Irish pub setting for as long as I can remember. My mom was killed in an auto accident. The settlement left for her 3 children has payouts for each of us when we turn 25, 30, and finally, the remainder when we turn 35. Crystal and I went through a lot of the money I received when I turned 25. She's really going to regret that we didn't spend it all. The barefoot lad ran across the beach towards the cabanas. His t-shirt had seen better days. There were holes in the jeans he was wearing. These were not the jeans with the intentional holes the millennials liked. They were actual wear and tear holes in the knees. The small suitcase he was carrying had several smiley face stickers affixed to the front and back. The lad also carried an envelope with $500 bills in it. He paused to locate Unit C-12 and then knocked. Softly at first, but with increasing intensity. The door swung open and a large man looked down at the lad. What do you want? Amigo, Senorita wants this. Please give it to her. The man looked at the suitcase and glanced around. He accepted both the suitcase and envelope from the lad and then closed his door. He saw the airline's checked bag sticker with Crystal's name on it. Whatever, he thought. On Tuesday morning, with Ted out on his guided fishing trip, Crystal strolled through the courtyard towards Cabana C-12. She was proud of her deception. Ted was so trusting. Once she had sampled Reggie, she was hooked. He wasn't any bigger than Ted. She found out she liked being treated like a little rough. Ted would never treat her with anything other than complete respect. Reggie heard the soft knock and found Crystal wearing a beautiful bikini and smiling. Morning, lover. We've got 5 hours. Think you're up to the challenge? Only one way to find out. Let's get naked. He smirked. There wasn't much foreplay. They'd worry about that later. It had been a week since they last met. She'd given Ted all sorts of excuses to avoid intimacy with him. Rolling off so she could use the bathroom, he remembered. Some kid dropped your luggage off here earlier. There's an envelope, too. What? That makes no sense. While still naked, the pair gazed at the contents of the suitcase. 11 small vials with a white powder in each. There was an empty slot amongst the 11. Reggie and Crystal each picked up a few of the containers. Crystal opened the envelope and pulled the $100 bills out. What the hell? Yes, sir. We saw that young boy hand him an envelope and run away with this container. It just looked suspicious to us, so my husband tried to stop him. The kid panicked, dropped the container, and bolted. The way the container is wrapped, we thought it might be drugs, so we brought it to you. If this is drugs, then I'd bet it is cocaine. Do you remember which unit the boy bought this from? The officer asked. C-12. There was no knock. The sound of the frame shattering startled the naked lovers. With commands screamed at them and staring down the barrels of automatic guns, the pair froze. When they looked at each other, they could see several red laser dots on the face and chest of their lover. As directed, they laid face down on the ground. I returned from my fishing excursion to my cabana. The damn keycard didn't work. I trudged to the front desk and showed my ID. "Please wait here, sir," cooed the very pretty young lady behind the counter. Her dark eyes and flowing black hair made her smile even prettier. "Mr. Smallhouse, please come with us." I didn't have a chance to turn to see who was speaking to me. I felt very strong hands grabbing my arms. I didn't resist. They took me to a private room behind the front desk. "Mr. Smallhouse, let me show you a picture. Do you recognize this?" "I think my wife has some luggage like that. Why do you ask?" "Where were you today?" he asked. "On the guided fishing tour. I just got back." "Can someone vouch for you?" he asked. "Definitely. I spent a few hours talking with the owner of the boat. His name was Jaime Rodriguez. I've got my receipt in my wallet," I answered. I fished out the receipt. "What's this all about?" I questioned. "Your wife was arrested for dealing cocaine," the officer replied. "No way! You've made a mistake. We don't do drugs, and she certainly isn't a dealer." "I'm confident in my arrest. It's you who seems to be uninformed. Do you know a Mr. Reggie Harmon?" he questioned. "Yeah, that's someone she works with," I replied. "Crystal and Reggie were arrested in his cabana around 10 a.m. today. They were naked, and that suitcase contained the cocaine. We also seized some cash," the officer answered. I sat digesting what he said. I didn't know. "Didn't know what, Mr. Smallhouse?" he pressed. "She was having an affair. You can lock her up and throw away the key," I roared. "Calm down, Mr. Smallhouse. I think that's all I have for you right now." The front desk cutie gave me a new key card. I immediately changed my reservation to return on the first available flight. Howard met me at the airport. We high-fived and headed to his bar. "It was perfect, Dad. They're locked up in a foreign country. If they angered off the judge, they could get 20 years. "No problems with the police?" my dad asked. "They didn't tell me I couldn't leave. I'm glad to be out of there. Your guy was worth it. 20 grand to get rid of a cheating woman. And now I get to make her squirm as she tries to stave off a divorce while locked up behind bars. I imagine by now she's been the target of some unwanted attention. And him too." We both broke out laughing. "Howard has met some pretty shady characters. One was purportedly involved with smuggling drugs using speedboats. Our plan was to put some cocaine in Crystal's luggage and then tip the police on possible drug dealing." I took Crystal's little suitcase with me to the dock that morning. I placed a few of those smiley face decals on the luggage. As worked out previously, I had an envelope with $5,000 in it and a smaller envelope with $500. If this hadn't worked, I'd have been out the $10,000 I'd paid to this point. Since it worked, I owed another $10,000. I contacted the divorce lawyer I'd been in touch with before my aborted vacation. He confirmed he would have her served in her jail cell in Costa Rica. I immediately placed an ad looking for someone to work as a live-in nanny. The third woman I interviewed, Heidi, was my age, single, and sterile. She really wanted to be a mother, and this seemed like a perfect fit. In less than a week, we were sharing my bed and bodily fluids. I put together 2 cards with a smiling face decal affixed to the inside of the card. I addressed one to Crystal and the other to Reggie. There was no return address on either envelope. My notation inside was, "Oh, I'm so scared of a Walmart assistant manager." I was actually looking forward to Crystal's trial. I wanted her to see me smirking in the courtroom. I felt a little trepidation that the police would somehow know I was involved. Common sense won out. I couldn't risk some podunk detective in a foreign country with my cheating wife and then pinning the drug on me. I had no reason to believe that, but why risk it? I did the next best thing. When I paid the final 10 grand, the guy agreed to have the courtroom filled with people holding up smiley face placards. He said it would be a pleasure, and there was no charge. I gave him a roll of the Walmart smiley face decals. I have no idea who was recruited to spoof the police, but they even testified to the supposed drug deal. Crystal and Reggie were convicted and given 10 years with no parole. The photos Howard received showed about 20 people in the courtroom holding up smiley face placards. I put together 2 cards with a smiling face decal affixed to the inside of the card. I addressed one to Crystal and the other to Reggie. There was no return address on either envelope. My notation inside was, "Oh, I'm so scared of a Walmart assistant manager. Did I see smiling face decals on the luggage?" The divorce was uncontested. We had proof of service, and Crystal failed to make any of the court appearances. Obviously, I was awarded custody. I was somewhat surprised that Crystal's parents didn't intercede. Perhaps it was Crystal's father who vetoed helping her. He had taken the drug overdose death of Crystal's brother pretty hard. I moved 500 miles away to take over as the manager in a small-town Walmart. Heidi and I are married and loving life. At Christmas time, I took a photo of myself with Heidi and my kids. I made a copy for Crystal and put a smiley face on the back along with my note. "Crystal, I hope you are doing well. The kids love Heidi. They call her Mom. You're probably going to have several babies over the next 10 years. You might not get to keep any of them either. Merry Christmas." And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.